Sipping on Cinema begins in 3, 2.
Well, Arrivederci was going to be my intro, and I was going to do my best Brad Pitt impression, but instead, insert breaking news noise. I have breaking news.
Well, let's hear it.
Tony says hi. Tony knows your
Tony's acknowledged
existence.
us.
To us.
You exist to him.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Tony.
He says to give a big shout out to all of us. I went into my liquor store, as we know, and my friend Tony was there. And very briefly, I kind of we were talking about some other stuff, and then I just kind of brought up about some of the shooters I've been getting to try out and see what I liked. And he goes, "Yeah, I listened to your podcast. It was really good, all this kind of stuff." And I was like,
Oh my God.
and then I was just so excited. I was like, I don't know if you know this, but you're kind of like an honorary side character on our show. You are a side character. And he's he was so excited. And
Oh my gosh. This is so good.
Listen, there'll be a day where I think Tony will be on the show. We need to get a little more established before we bring on such a distinguished guest. Okay.
Let him pick his favorite movie.
Can you get more distinguished than the Virginian liquor store clerk? I think we need to start.
I don't know if you can. Tony, this is a coveted role of the Tony, okay? But Tony says hi. Tony acknowledged us. He was very excited about it. So we have a friend named Tony now who knows about us, and we can stop talking behind his back. No, I'm just kidding. We're not talking behind your back, but I do need all of you to straighten up and not embarrass me in front of my friend Tony now.
All right, we won't. We'll do good by Tony's good name.
That's right.
Send me his number. I'll get his schedule. We'll get him booked.
We'll have our people reach out to his people. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Good.
Executive producer Alexis.
That's great. I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you, Tony. Please tell your friends.
That's the update, and we shall begin the show.
Wow.
I know, right? It's rehearsed.
Sorry, I'm just it feels so cool. I mean, this is the last episode of this first season we're doing, and
I know.
I mean, we've literally just we wanted to start with just doing all of our favorite stuff. So the fact that all we're doing is pretty much just gushing about all our favorite things, and someone's actually wanting to tune in is really cool.
Yeah. It's an awesome feeling, especially when you meet people who have listened, because I've had that happen to me before. And it's cool. It's a really cool thing to have people check in on your work, but and just join in the conversation, because that's all it is, really. It's a conversation.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We wanted to make it as open-ended as possible, so anyone can kind of just jump in wherever they feel like they fit best.
Absolutely. I mean, we do, even though we're in each other's prospective living rooms about 1,000 miles away, we do have a lounge experience here, an atmosphere, if you will, over the air.
I'm lounging so hard
welcome
right now.
to anybody.
I am
lounging so hard right now, bro. You wouldn't believe the lounging.
There's so much lounging and abiding going on in this room that I wouldn't say it's an unhealthy level, because I don't think that's possible, but you should join in. There's plenty to go around.
That's right. But anyway, with that wonderful introduction, this is the last episode of season 1 of Sipping on Cinema, where we pull up a seat, grab a drink, and talk movies. I am your host, Bethanne Ciaccio-Tarpley. We also have our host, JRB. And before we talk about sipping, what did I say? I said JRB, right?
No, all I said was indeed.
Oh, I thought you said D. And I was like, did I say JRD or something? I can't imagine I'd fuck it up that bad.
Oh my God, what did I say wrong?
What did I do? What can I say? Tony's listening, okay? I'm on
She's nervous.
edge.
Tony's listening to us, so she's watching everything she says now.
Exactly.
It's okay.
But
you can let your guard down. It's all right. Tony's on our side.
That's right. I got to quiz you. What is one of the best franchise movies, like the movie inside the franchise ever? Any guesses?
Oh my gosh.
There's only one right answer.
Okay.
For this
well,
joke.
Then just hit me with it.
Return of the King, baby.
No, not the Bird Dog Peach Whiskey. Not the Peach Whiskey.
Okay. But I also got
think
the Jim Beam honey, because I didn't have Jack Daniel's honey. So
okay, close enough.
And then I got an apple one. So I'm gonna do the honey today. But I feel like we're getting closer, because this one came back.
Contrasting flavors.
Yeah. Well, I'm only gonna drink one tonight, and then the other
Okay.
2 will be for other shows. Well,
Man,
maybe
that
I'll
peach
drink
one,
2
you
tonight.
do you actually
I don't
like
know
it, or are
what
you
today's
just doing it
window.
to spite me?
No,
I feel
I
like you're
actually
just
think it listen, I actually think it's kinda good. But you
okay.
gotta keep in mind, I'm a vodka and lemonade kinda girl when it comes down to liquor, okay?
Yeah. Hey,
Like,
you know what?
the
Lemonade goes good with the Jack Honey too.
yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
That's a popular mixer I would use for
Or
that
a
one.
cranberry vodka.
Very
I
frequent.
am a cranberry
Mm,
vodka, Cape Cod kinda
yes.
girl. But I also like beer and cider, so that does redeem it a little bit, so.
The cranberry vodka is what I order when I'm either too preoccupied or too nervous to actually think about my order, and I just need to go with something safe that won't
Yeah.
give me acid reflux.
That's see? You always need one of those in
It
your
checks
back
off so
pocket.
many boxes. I just named like 5.
Yeah. It's
That was
easy.
actually a very specific scenario, but cranberry vodka is what I order whenever I don't wanna think about the order, but,
I understand.
um
I understand. But this is the Jim Beam honey. That's what I'm working on. Are you still working
okay,
on
cool.
Jack Daniels?
Yes, yeah, I was actually gonna get some lemonade, and, they didn't have any at the store when I went, so, I'm just drinking it straight. I put it in some coffee earlier, like, I had this
Ooh, that
espresso,
sounds good.
or I made it like an americano, and,
Mhm.
I poured some of this in there, and it was okay. It was really sugary, it tasted
Yeah.
like, though, so I don't know if that was a hit, but
I have this cherry Starburst sparkling ice. The Starburst sparkling ice flavors are
mhm.
on their own other level of craziness.
Wait,
Like
I'm
how
sorry, what brand is that?
sparkling ice.
Sparkling ice.
Yeah.
Oh, anything red is usually a yes for me. I love cherry and
You
strawberry.
should try this. The strawberry one tastes exactly like a Starburst. Like, literally
Oh,
tastes like it.
sold. Yep,
But
awesome.
and it's 0 sugar too and has vitamins, antioxidants in it. But I wonder how it would taste in a whiskey sour situation.
Ooh, now, yeah, that you're playing with fire now.
I'm thinking about it because I got an extra cup right here.
Mm,
We'll see. Because I think it would taste good with the peach one, especially. Get like a peach cherry situation going.
okay.
But Imma wait.
Maybe. I
I will
think
say,
that's still a
this
risk.
is delicious.
Okay. That's just the Jim Beam honey?
It is very good.
There's yeah,
Smooth well, it's not
I
smooth,
believe
but
that
it's
one.
good. It's good. It's got a little hit in it. It's nice.
Mm.
Well, anyway, um, I guess we should talk about what we came here to do, and which is Inglourious Basterds, which I I'm still in shock that we just finished our first season. It feels like yesterday
I know.
that we
It's
were
crazy.
meeting to discuss reviving Lights, Thunder, Action, and
Yeah,
then
it's
we
pretty wild because, like,
killed it with a steak
if
with
you
Thomas's blessing.
stop, don't do this. If we were to look back 1 year ago, this concept that we're living out right now, which is sipping on cinema, wasn't even an idea yet.
Right.
But it's weird because, like, when we think back to last year, like, we spent most of the summer and into the rest of the year working on this idea and figuring out how we wanted to make it work. So, like, it doesn't feel like just a year ago this was nothing. But at the same time, like, it's so strange that we've already covered 6 of our favorite movies. It doesn't really feel like we've done much work at all once we got this going,
Yeah.
because it's just such a passion point for the both of us. So,
Agreed.
it's very surreal, you know, to think, like, how much we've put into this, but how little it's felt like actual work. It's
Yeah.
kinda exactly what I wanted to get out of it.
No, absolutely. That's a really good point. Cause yeah, it's like with movies, right? There's always this enjoyment level to it. And we all, if you are a movie file like us, obviously, if you're listening to this,
Mhm.
like you just get enjoyment out of talking about those things. So on that end of it, that's 80% of the work.
Yeah, right.
And 20% of it, it's like meetings and our executive producer, Alexis, telling us to, you know, be better. But,
It is funny how she just comes out of nowhere sometimes with these great ideas, and we're like, we've been racking our brains so hard that sometimes we just need to, take a step back and let her, create something.
You
But
always need that's why she's the executive producer.
yeah, yeah, she's
That's what she
our eyes in
does.
the sky. She sees the big picture.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, no, it's so cool. So I mean, for anyone who's followed along during this little mini series of favorites that we've gone through, thanks for joining us because really all we wanted to do is just create space for just movie lovers to be able to really kind of just open up about the things that they enjoy and the things that they like to see, and I feel like with the movie industry in particular, people are so quick to talk about the things they don't like and make comparisons and point out flaws. But, and not to say that we won't do that when it's appropriate, but at
Sure.
the same time, I just wanted to step away from that and have a space where we could focus more on the positive side of things, and that's another reason why we started with some of our favorite movies ever, is because we wanted it to have a positive vibe. We wanted to make it feel inviting and happy.
Yeah. And he's hitting it right on the head there, because it's like I think in this field, especially when you are in the entertainment critic kind of space, which both of us kind of, have some hands
I'm
in,
walking
right?
that line. Yeah.
Walk that line. It's so easy to just get negative, negative, negative. This is what I didn't like. This is what I didn't like. And then you come out of it and it's like, and then you give it 4 stars and you're like, well, did you actually like it? Like, you know
Mm,
what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah.
we get so conditioned to talk about all the things that didn't work, all the things that, really rubbed us the wrong way, yada, yada, yada. And it's
Sure.
nice to just enjoy the art for what it is.
Hmm.
Not, like you said, not saying there's not going to be times where, we're going to get brutal and tear some things down if it's warranted, right? If it's
Sure.
lazy writing, I
Yeah.
will do that in a heartbeat. But for most of the time, these are artists who put their hearts into everything they make. And then really what's happening is money's coming in, right? The
Hmm.
big production companies are coming in and doing what money does. But anyway, with all that said, because I can keep going on this,
No, I
let's
I
talk
like
about.
that you bring that up. I like that because like there are some things in this movie, Inglourious Basterds in particular, that like there will be some elements that don't often get very much attention or get celebrated, but I want to have the ability to highlight those things, like the soundtrack, for instance. We're going to be talking
Mhm.
about the score and the soundtrack in several different places, and a couple different power dynamics that Quentin Tarantino creates with the elements in this movie. A lot of that can get overlooked when a movie comes out just through the hype and the possible, you know, discourse between whether you liked it or didn't like it. So anyway, I thank you for coming here and letting us gush about these things. I keep saying gush
Yes.
because that's all it feels like. I'm just letting out all these good feelings that I have about all these good things. So,
Right.
but this movie I hadn't even seen before. You introduced me to this one. I'd
I
never
mean,
watched it.
if you wanna talk about an artist, and this is a nice segue. If you wanna talk about an artist that does art for art's sake and then tells the production companies what he's going to do no matter what they say,
Mm,
okay?
hmm.
Few directors hold that power these days, okay?
Hmm.
And
Especially
Quentin
now.
Tarantino is one of them. He is the most unique individual I have ever witnessed, both in, like, personal life and in, writing and his writing style. I'm a huge fan of Quentin Tarantino. He might be my favorite director.
Okay, good to
But,
know.
yeah, we're talking about Inglourious Basterds, which I think is his best out of all of them, but I also have a soft spot for all of his movies. Um, but
I mean,
before
he
we
really can't miss.
No. No, he can't. And before we get into the drink discussion portion, I do want to give a quick little housekeeping note. Like we've kind of mentioned, the season is ending this round, but we're going to go to a different topic. We're still working on that and we'll provide more details as they come available. But just to give you a heads up, we're not going anywhere. This isn't a last year situation.
No, 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 no. By the time this episode's out, I think we'll probably have it all ironed out. It's really just a matter of making sure we schedule it right and, making sure that we choose something that
Yeah.
that, is going to be interesting to more than just the two of us cuz,
Right.
like I said, this season was really to use our interest to kind of boost the vibe that we want to have here, but now it's time to start branching out. But yeah, more to come on that. Probably, by the time you're listening to this, we'll have some details to follow.
Okay. So we're going to start off this conversation where I think the whole conversation starts. And that is, what's the first drink you see in the film?
Mm,
And I think the most famous drink, so to speak, is the milk that Hans Landa asks for,
I have
who,
to agree.
who is played by
It's
Christoph Waltz,
pivotal.
excuse me. Yeah. Which, milk is good on it of its own, right? I mean, it's 1940s. They don't have Baja Blast, okay? So you gotta work with what God has given you in your timeline that you have been assigned.
Right.
But but
Sure.
if we had to pitch a new drink, what
Uh-huh.
would it be?
Well, I have probably a couple different ways we could go with this. Do you want to talk about drinks that already exist that I think are fitting to the plot, or do you want to make a couple originals that are like sipping on cinema
Special.
exclusives? Yeah, our special
Ooh.
menu. Yeah,
I think you should grab one from each.
one from
So
each. Okay.
one that you think is already made, and then we should collaborate on one that isn't made.
Okay. All right. Then I think for this movie, I think I have two. I think
Go ahead.
I have two that people
Sing
already
your
know.
song. Sing your song.
The first one would be a French 75. You make it with gin, champagne, lemon juice, and sugar.
Isn't
It's
lavender
pretty
in it? Am I wrong on that? Isn't lavender in it?
lavender. I don't know. Can you look that up? I'll find out if there's lavender in it. I like that. That'd be a
Mhm.
nice touch. It's named after a French field gun from World War II. Actually, the French 75 artillery something. But it reminded me of Shoshana because obviously the French aspect with her being in France, hiding as a owner of a movie theater. But she was the Jewish character that's basically evading the Nazis and eventually rebelling against them. This drink kind of symbolizes her in a way and what she brought to the fight, because without her, we certainly wouldn't get the type of resolution we get at the end of the movie. And I obviously we're not going to spoil anything because hopefully you've seen this, but I don't want to get too much into it yet. But yeah, Alexis is saying it can be made with raspberry or blackberry garnish, but she hasn't seen it with lavender. I think we should try lavender and see how it
I
tastes.
think lavender would taste good with it. Maybe my friend
I like
once,
that.
because she makes French 75s, and I think she made it with
Oh, yeah?
lavender, so that's where I got confused.
I like that. The Bethanne twist, lavender.
Yes.
And then the other one would be a stinger, and that's for Hans Landa. That would be cognac and then creme de menthe. I had to get the cream in there somewhere,
Wait for the creme.
But
Yes.
it's usually associated with like old school sophistication, but it has like a deceptive kind of like almost sinister sweetness. It's like it's smooth, but it has a bite. You don't really expect it, but it has a bite to it. And that's exactly what
Yeah.
Colonel Lando was like. So I would probably
Would you
choose both of
call
those.
would you call Colonel Hans Landa the peach whiskey of
No.
that
No.
world? I mean, think about it. Think about it. It's nice
No,
and
he's much
pleasant.
more
There's a
elegant than that.
fucking dog on it.
No, he he's a bit more refined than the Bird Dog Peach whiskey. By the way, each episode we've burned at least one corporate bridge. It has to be Bird Dog at this point. They're never gonna give us the light of day if we ever reach out to them for something.
You are burning
I
the bridge
don't.
this time, sir.
Yeah, you're right.
Not me.
It's me.
Nay, I.
I have a couple Sipping on Cinema original drinks that I would like to review as well, but I think I'll wait until the appropriate scene to try to introduce them. And then if I forget, then I forget. But let's go ahead and talk about some of your favorite parts as the dogs are barking.
As the dogs are barking,
And
I know.
it's funny. We were taping the Tick Tick Boom episode, and I didn't hear it at the time, but listening back and doing all the audio editing, my there's at least one dog in that video that
Oh,
just
at
doesn't
least.
stop.
I mean, here's the thing. Here's my philosophy on it. I've heard a lot of podcasts that are like hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and they have dogs barking in the background. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's the key to success.
Just
Maybe that's it.
don't care so much. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's no, have a dog.
Oh,
That's have a dog.
well, hey, if you have a dog, you won't
care.
Yeah, maybe you'll be more carefree. I don't know. Yeah.
You're probably on there.
That was your dog though, right? Do we need to go check on?
Oh, of course, it was my dog.
Okay. All right.
Lady is a perfect lady. I mean, she's perfect.
She's
not
sleeping.
like my mutts of a hound. Is she?
She's snoozing right now.
Okay, so going really quick because I got to throw a drink in here on the list of ones already in existence. And this is so stupid, but like I feel like some kind of lager needs to be on here. I know it's stupid, but like I need a French version of a beer. But I don't know the answer to that.
A French beer. I
French
don't know the answer to that either.
Someone's got to be making a French beer. But anyway, I'm surprised none of us did that. But I mean, let's be honest. I would be the only one to do something that lazy. I
have an idea with a German beer. I'll get to that in a little bit, but I don't have any French beer on there. Maybe because it doesn't exist. We're gonna find out.
Okay,
but
we'll find out.
Sorry, she's typing something, but it's in white lettering.
Nice. Oh, I see it. The Kronenborg. I told you it exists.
Okay, we found a French beer. We found a
what
Cronin.
did I
How do you say
say?
that?
A lager of some sort. The Kronenborg.
It was first brewed in Starsborg. It's probably not pronounced Borg.
Starsborg. In
Cyborg.
1664.
Booyah! Yeah, it's definitely
I
not
knew it.
Starsborg, but 1664. Holy cow!
Look at that.
400 years ago. Okay. All right. So yeah, it's existed for a while. We're cultured. We're becoming more cultured. That's what
We're
sipping on
pinky up
cinema
kind of
is.
people. What can I say?
Sipping on culture. We learn things here. This is a learning environment. All right, and it's a safe space
Correct.
to do so. But
That's right.
all right, so maybe if you're listening along and you don't want to go as crazy as pouring cognac or making a French 75, you can find Cronenberg somewhere. Maybe can you find it in the States? We'll find out.
Let us know if you find Cronenberg somewhere.
Please,
We'd love to
because
know.
we want to try it.
Yes. Okay. So, talking about the main segment now, I want to go chapter by chapter since the movie is broken out into those. And also, I think that's always a cool story element that we don't see that often in films, but I always enjoy when they do them because, like books, I think that's neat. And you can kind of feel each one. And I think he's really good about like where he starts and stops a chapter. Like it feels like it would in a book. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can get with it. Yeah, I think that makes sense because like the scene opens and you're you see a car driving through these rolling hills and it sets the scenery real slowly so you can take it all in. I get that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna start with chapter 1. I apologize, I forgot to write down the name for this one and the second one, but
I made my own titles for
I
it.
like
I didn't even
I'm
know those
reading it.
were official
Tarantino
titles.
Warped War Epic. I like that. You know what?
I mean,
We're
that's
rewriting
basically the
history.
title of the movie. I love the revisionist history aspect of it, and
Yeah.
the very opening moments, you get a feel for that right away.
Yeah, absolutely. So, quick recap, and then we're going to talk about a few of my favorite things. Another Nazi movie reference. My musical girlies and gays, days, and guys will know what that is. Anyway, we meet Hans Lando. God, I feel like Thomas right now. Remember he would do this on the show?
I see. Okay, throwback to Lights, Thunder, Action.
I'm having a
Our outlines
flashback.
would literally be the movie summary, chapter by chapter, and then we would just pause and talk about all our favorite parts, and then go to the next chapter. So going through this outline was like a throwback to my LTA days.
I didn't even plan for
loved it.
that until I started talking, and I'm like, wait a second, I sound like Thomas right now. The way
No,
I
this
just
is great. I literally
prepped
scrolled
up
through
that.
chapter by chapter, just typed in what I wanted to say, and just kept going. So this is
I love it.
exactly what I'm used to.
I love it. Anyway, we meet Hans Lando, the friendliest villain you ever met. He visits Monsieur La Petite in his home and coaxes him into admitting he is sheltering Jewish neighbors below the floorboards. One escapes and Hans Lando doesn't take the shot. That person is Shoshana. Okay, starting with a few of my favorite things.
Shoshana.
The music at the beginning is the first thing I noticed. And I didn't notice this in my previous viewings, but I probably saw it last time 2 years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So it's nice to revisit. The very beginning chords is Für Elise by German composer Beethoven. And then it plays into this kind of warped world that almost goes Western. Almost like a Western Mexican
you hear
standoff.
the guitar and you hear the little clickety clack.
Yeah, that note, plum, that he does in it. And that just gives me some musical goosebumps, if you will, because I think that's so neat. It's nice, tasty little snack at the beginning.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome because like you thought for sure it was Beethoven at first, and then it breaks away from that classical style, and you just get that feeling right away that this is just going to be full of stuff that you're not expecting, and even though something might look familiar, it's going to take this turn where it'll be totally different from anything you recognize. So I thought that was really creative, and it was a German composer. Then it transitions into like a sound that would be more frequent in like a spaghetti western. So like it's literally German history made into a spaghetti western, and you hear that before you see anything.
Yeah. No, I love it. Hold on. I'm gonna actually tell the dogs to shut up. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Mia's now entered the chat.
I don't know if anyone remembers, but we talked about how our monthly meetings would always feature a dog moment where the dogs would take over the meeting.
Right.
I guess it's only fitting that they would do it for the actual recordings too.
Oh yeah. Well, they're reading their minutes from their committee meetings. That's really all it is.
Yeah, I hope you're transcribing this lady.
That's right. She's been given a blanket. She's now resting. Her collar's off so she doesn't make noise.
Oh, so very,
She's
very
good.
smart. You're very
She's
forward
good.
thinking.
Okay, on to the next point. Next, a few of my favorite things is Christoph Waltz, which I think it was Django Unchained. I fell in love with his acting style.
Uh-huh.
And then I saw this and I was like, oh, like it didn't even compare at that point.
Oh, he's
What he
crazy
did.
good.
Oh my God. The guy knows
He's
like 6
crazy good.
languages and how he like enunciates and changes
Yeah,
his
the fact that
acting based
I
off the
mean,
language.
he felt so conversational in every language that he spoke, where like even without reading the subtitles, you still got a sense of what he was getting at because he spoke it so fluently. I was so impressed
Right.
by that.
Right. Well, he won the Oscar for it, if I remember correctly, for that exact
Mm,
reason. I
wow.
mean, that man can do it. And then the last of my favorite things is we get a taste historically, and this is important, that the Nazis seemed like ordinary people just carrying out
Yeah.
tasks, right? Quote
Yeah.
unquote.
No, you're right. I mean, it was literally just orders being given at the time. No one was looking back on it thinking about how terrible it was because it was happening then,
Yeah.
But a lot of these people were just regular Germans but there's so many ordinary folks that get just caught in the middle here. And it's really cool to see, how it unfolds in their personal lives and what it means for them and their loved ones.
Yeah. And that's kind of a thing where I feel like in most movies, we'll talk about this more, but like, Nazis are kind of, they're the villains, which they are. Let it be
Hmm.
known. But they
Yeah.
they're
Spoiler
built
alert.
to have that villain personality, right?
Right.
And which is true. But the problem is you don't see the human aspect. They're not a character. They're, what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, where I'm trying to get at? There's this human
I do.
element that Christoph brings into it and reminds us how tricky of a slope it was of
Yeah, absolutely. I
why,
mean, we
you know what
look
I
back on
mean?
them and only see the evil. We don't think about how it was
How
fabricated
they
and
arrived
how
there.
exactly right. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is the build up to that point too. Yeah, I mean, there was so much that he was able to communicate in his acting, but I mean, just when he was sitting down in this opening scene in this family's kitchen, I mean, it all takes place in one room. This opening scene
Mhm.
that takes what 10 minutes or so maybe to
Yeah.
unfold. The tension that builds because you're always wondering what's happening outside and who all is there, and there's so many questions. But I mean, you could tell like out of all the Germans that were Nazis, he enjoyed it arguably the most. Like
Yeah.
he was purely sinister through and through.
It was great, man. It was great. Anyway, I can talk about this acting for millennia, but we need to move on to chapter 2,
Hmm.
because I renewed as the audience doesn't know, but like the account we used to record on, my personal one, only had 33 minutes left. And so I had to get a new one, open it,
I
another free one under a different email. So
I
we
think
don't
we're at
want
like
to,
33 minutes right now. Like we would have had to just stop right now.
yeah, quick thinking on my end.
Nice.
Okay, chapter 2, Vengeance Served Neat. Man, you write some good titles, man. And
I thought I was just filling in the blanks here, so thank
no,
you.
no, you're good. We meet Lieutenant Aldo Rain, who is putting together a team of Jewish American soldiers.
Oh man, Brad Pitt's accent was crazy in this movie.
Oh my god, dude. So when the men join his team, they owe a debt of 100 Nazi scalps, and he wants his scalps.
He
Then we
wants him.
meet the Bear Jew, played by Eli Roth, who kills a Nazi with a bat because he refuses to tell him where the other German soldiers are located. His other Nazi companion gives the answer quickly, and when they ask him if he's going to take his uniform off after the war, he says, "Yes, I'm going to burn it. I'm going to do right." And he goes, "Well, I don't like that because that's not good enough."
Yeah.
And then he goes, they send him out to warn the Fuhrer, but they don't do it without carving a Nazi symbol in his forehead.
Yeah, that was crazy. They're like, "Well, if you burn your uniform, you'll just be walking around. No one will know you used to be a Nazi, so we got to
Yeah.
do something about that." And they carved a swastika right in the middle of his forehead.
But I mean, do you disagree?
No, no, I actually thought
I
it was
love
brilliant. I
it.
was like, Why wasn't this an actual thing they did?"
I know. The
it
Nuremberg trials would have went a lot easier. Let
it
me
would
tell
have,
you.
yes,
Walking and fucking around Belize, all those freaking German
exactly.
Nazis that
Yes, we could have
escaped,
avoided that
we could have
entirely.
avoided it, man. Oh
Man,
my gosh.
yeah. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, but Quentin Tarantino was onto something with this. This was
He really
genuinely
was.
brilliant.
He really was.
Yeah, that was great.
A few of my favorite things we already kind of talked about. Brad Pitt's speech at the beginning, man, and the way he just delivers
It's a
this
great speech.
speech.
It's convicting as hell.
Holy
I
shit,
gotta
it's
say though,
so good.
he does sound like a video game character.
Oh, he does.
Going through this and listening to him, I don't I don't know what part of the South he based his accent on,
I think it's
but
Tennessee, isn't it? Because that's
what?
where his
Okay,
family's
yeah,
from.
I definitely feel like there's someone out there in Tennessee, just a bearded guy just living his day to day. Actually, Nathan Johnson with the direct.
Yeah.
It's probably him. I would think he's offended by this, but there's
That's
probably a
funny.
Tennessee man somewhere who's just deeply offended by this. I thought it was so funny, but
That's awesome.
he sounds like a guy who like exclusively eats beef jerky, and what he probably got lost in like a Bass Pro Shop once, like multiple days just camping out. But
That man tried to climb the mountain, okay?
yes,
And
yes, he did.
yeah,
And
in what's the other one? Gander's Mountain?
yeah,
He tried to
Gander
climb.
Mountain, yeah.
Yeah, he tried to climb, and he saw a wolf up there, and he's like, "No one's gonna do it, I'm gonna do it."
Man,
And he tries to
yeah.
kill it because he didn't know it was stuffed. Now I'm just stereotyping, I should pull that back a little bit.
No, Brad Pitt's accent was one of the few things that I didn't absolutely love. I was waiting for a post-credits scene tease where like there's a sequel where they're like in the desert and he's like, "Howdy, Saudis," like from from Family Guy or American Dad or whatever. But I
That's so funny.
it was so over the top, but I did enjoy it. It just it did take me out of it for a
I can
second.
see that, but now that you say it, I can see it. Like, I can see that being a Call of Duty character.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
1000%.
yes, exactly. He was definitely like straight out of a Call of Duty movie or game for a movie. This was a
Yes.
Call of Duty movie.
This was Call of Duty, yes.
There was another
Absolutely.
character that could have been in Call of Duty.
Oh,
Maybe the best nickname ever.
and as we talk about him, the Bear Jew.
The Bear Jew.
Dude.
When he
This
said
is the
Bear
shit
Jew,
I love Tarantino for, okay? Because it's so asinine of a name that it's so good at the same time.
it's so
Like,
good.
how do you think of that stuff?
It's so good. That is actually one of the names that I thought of for like a Sipping on Cinema original cocktail, and we would call it the Bear Jew Brew.
I mean, you should.
We would just pick the strongest German ale we had on tap and serve it in a baseball bat mug.
Yes. I
It'll
love it.
also it'll help us make sure that we're not over serving people too, because say Bear Jew Brew 5 times fast.
That's exactly right.
That's a
the
hard one to
test
order.
get out.
You don't get your keys back unless you can say Bear Jew Brew 5 times.
Exactly. We're onto something here. We're gonna pin this for whenever we open our franchises of bars around America.
We're gonna have a full menu by the end of this season here. This last episode, I mean, we've had at least one drink every episode.
Mhm.
We're gonna have a specials list that we'll be able to pull from here.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Only season 1 listeners will know about it though. It's gonna be this secret back of house menu. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. And then the last of my favorite things, it happens in here, happens a couple times, but Samuel L. Jackson's narration, particularly of Hugo Stiglitz's character in that
Oh my
whole
gosh.
montage.
I perked up so
great.
hard when I heard his voice. That was so
love it.
cool. They've got to be best friends, right? Samuel J. and Quentin Tarantino. Because
I'm sure he's been in like a lot of his films.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't. He narrated Kill Bill Volume 2, and he was in. I think he had an uncredited role in Django Unchained, but like obviously there's Pulp Fiction, and like I just feel like he's
Hateful Eight.
And Hateful Eight. I forgot about
Mhm.
that one. Yeah. So I mean, that's like half of Quentin's movies he's directed, right?
Yeah.
That's
I mean, he
crazy.
works with him pretty frequently, along with what's his name, Tim Roth. He works with Tim Roth a lot.
Oh yeah.
Not to be confused with Eli Roth.
It's
who's
funny you
also in
say
this
that
film.
because I thought of Tim Roth when we watched this movie.
Because he was in Reservoir Dogs. He was one of the original Reservoir Dogs.
When we were watching Hans Landa, I thought that was him at first because I know
I can see
him.
that.
I knew him originally as Emil Blonsky in The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I just thought with the military getup and everything, they looked so similar that opening scene, it took me like half of it to realize it wasn't him. Or no, I think it was probably longer than that actually. But
It's funny.
that is funny that he was involved in this movie. I wasn't, or is he
No,
just
Eli Roth was.
Eli
But
Roth
Eli
was,
Roth played the Bear Jew.
but Tim
but
Roth is just associated with
Roth
Tarantino elsewhere.
He's done other roles with Tarantino. He was in Hateful
Ah,
Eight as well,
I
which
see.
is funny because he does look like Christoph Waltz in Hateful Eight. Like it's
Interesting.
Django Unchained
Oh my gosh,
version.
that's so funny.
Yeah.
Tarantino has a type, huh?
He's got a type. He's got a small world around him.
Actually, I was reading about the whole Beartooth role, and Tarantino, he wrote that role for Adam Sandler, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
That's crazy. But Adam Sandler was already committed to what?
Yeah, he
Funny
was
People?
committed. He was committed to something else. Could you imagine?
Looking
though?
back, I mean, you made the wrong call, man. I would have left Funny People for that.
Yeah, I agree. But Eli Roth did a good job with what he had.
He did, absolutely. Yeah, I don't want
he
to take
does
away
some
from
good
that
stuff.
because he definitely did. But I just thought it was so crazy that we almost got Adam Sandler in this role.
Yeah. Oh, what could have been? Maybe for his next film that he was writing and then stopped because I think he got sentimental about it being his last film. So we'll see.
Interesting.
Yeah, he was gonna do The Movie Critic was the name
Uh-huh.
of it, which of course he would do the most meta thing possible with his career.
Yeah.
But he stops like 2 weeks in of
Really?
filming. Yeah.
Oh,
I think he's
interesting.
getting too sentimental because he put the 10 movie mark on himself. I think
Put
he
too
did
much
this to
pressure on
himself.
himself, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyway, chapter 3. Time jump 4 years to 1944, and we run back into Shoshana, who owns a cinema. She now goes under the name of, I don't want to say this wrong, Emmanuel Mimio.
Emmanuel Mimieux. I love when
Mimio.
they say Ms. Mimieux.
Miss Mimio.
I really like her name.
Mew mew.
Oh, no.
She is stopped by. What are you doing?
Oh, hey, you're in on the fun now. What's going on?
I don't like Nazis either, but we don't gotta bark and ruin the moment.
Yeah, no, Mimieux's the good one. She kills the Nazis.
Hold on. Hey.
Man, the dogs are taking over this episode.
They really are. Okay. She's coming back to her spot. She just had to get it out of her system. Okay. She is stopped by German war hero Friedrich Zoller, who tries to talk about how he admires the theater. You know who he is, right?
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Bruhl, I was so happy to see him pop up in something non-Marvel related. I know him as Baron Zemo from Captain America Civil War and Falcon and Winter Soldier. Yeah, but we were so happy to see him come up in this too.
Yeah.
Alexis was even happier than I was.
I like Daniel Bruhl a lot, and he's great in this role.
Yeah, I thought he did an amazing job in this, and very convincing.
Yes. They run again into each other at a cafe, and she asks him to stop bothering her. Rude. Well, like most lovesick Germans, he doesn't. And since they made a propaganda film about him and starring him about one of his famous battle scenes, he convinces the Reich to host it at her theater. The person in charge of security, Hans Lando, who doesn't recognize her because now she has blonde hair. And that proves that men cannot tell when woman changes her hair. Scientific fact.
I can get behind that.
Not to put you on read, but I see Alexis shaking her head, and we understand.
I mean, well, she just got a haircut yesterday, and I complimented it as soon as I saw
Good
her.
for
So
you.
I mean, give me some points here.
Good, you do get some points. That I spoke to the other men in the world.
Okay, yeah. Everyone else listening, get with the program.
Josh, no, I'm just kidding.
Hey, he's out there wrangling these dogs for you, and you're throwing him under the bus.
He would be like, "Yeah, what about it?" Trust me, he's fine. After their intense dessert exchange, where they have to wait for the creme to be put on top of the apple streusel.
That was such a good scene.
That is a good scene. She decides with her projectionists that they are going to burn the theater down with the Nazis inside. Now, few of my favorite things. Yes, Christoph Waltz. But I'm also going to add another thing in here. This is where the story takes shape. And historically, I wish the war ended this way instead. Because how badass would that have been?
It's written so well. It's a great ending. I mean, this
is
if you want a story where the good guys truly come out on top and justice is served, it's this movie because it takes the World War II events and it changes a lot of it where the buildup is different too. But the resolution, I mean, it's very satisfying.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're right. The story does take shape here. I think that scene where they're ordering the apple streusel. Oh my goodness.
Streusel.
First of all, he's so hungry all the time. But
I didn't notice that until this. Okay, that's pretty good.
But Tarantino does this with food. There's several times in various movies where he does this with like power dynamics using food as like a supporting element. I had it written down somewhere because There was the burger scene in Pulp
damn
Fiction.
good burger.
Yes, the burger scene. That one's
and
iconic.
The dinner scene at Django Unchained.
Yes.
Oh, you're cooking with that.
Yes. So he controls the situation, and then so after they're ordering the dessert, and he says to wait for the cream. There's a moment right before that when he orders her drink for her, and he orders her a glass of milk, and like I just took that as him being like, I know who you are, I know what you're up to, and he goes, Emanuela, can I call you Manuel? And she goes, we, and he just kind of looks at her like, all right, I guess we're gonna play this game. Like he just had such a intuition about everything before he even sat down, and I just thought he played everything so cool, and there was so much tension in that moment.
Yeah,
it was so well done. Psychological warfare is so fun, but when you weaponize your desserts to do it, I mean that's so on brand for Nazis, you know,
taking the best fucking thing
exactly
from
right.
us.
I mean, it had it to a point where I thought it was. I thought that cream was like poisoned or something. I was like, "What is going on here? Why is there so much tension?" And then he offers her the cigarette just so he can see how she's breathing when because he goes, "Oh, I also had another question for you." Right after she takes a drag of the cigarette, and she's just sitting there holding her breath. I couldn't get over how well done that one scene was.
That's why Christoph Waltz is king.
If I could, I think this is where we have an opportunity to have another Sipping on Cinema original cocktail.
Yes.
And this could be a cocktail or a shot, a dessert style shot with apple schnapps and a dollop of whipped cream. We'll call it the strudel schnapps. Except there's one, there is a stipulation to it.
Okay.
If you order it, you got to order for the whole table. It has to be something that you order for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
This scene is all about controlling the situation with the food, you know?
No, what you should do is the drink comes out first. And whoever gets to drink first has to make everyone wait for the cream.
Oh, I like that.
You don't get to drink until the cream gets put on it.
Yeah, wait for the cream.
Wait for the creme.
Oh, man, that was so good. So good.
I love it. Okay. Chapter 4, which is the longest chapter, I think. Maybe chapter 5, but chapter 5 just moves, and that's the last chapter. But chapter 4, Operation Kino. We are introduced to Michael Fassbender's character, Lieutenant Hancock, who is preparing a covert operation for the British Army. He enters the room with Michael Myers, and I remember when this movie came out, and we were like, what is Michael Myers doing here? It's like we couldn't get Adam Sandler, so we got Michael Myers in the contract.
I was really thrown off by that.
But hey, he did a great job.
And then, once I saw him, it was great.
Yeah. And then some dude playing Winston Churchill, no clue who he is. They discuss his qualifications, including fluent French and being a film journalist outside the war. He's briefed on a mission he will do with the Basterds in France. His contact is German film actress Bridget von Hammersmark, who I'm going to call BVH from here on forth.
Like that?
Just like that. At the rendezvous spot in a tavern / in a basement, which is a bad idea.
Very bad. Yeah, the bar in the basement was, I mean, that's a vibe in like suburban Midwest, Midwestern
especially
United
in the
States,
Northeast too.
Yeah, but like, I mean, that looked like it was borderline like dungeon-esque, you know?
Those are the best spots though. That's where the good stuff is, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So I understand why she was gravitated towards it. Anyway, Fassbender and Kruger have a tense exchange with a German commander. His cover is only blown by how he used his hands to indicate 3.
Yeah, that was crazy. Just the way he held up his fingers. I didn't know. So I was like sitting there. I'm like, what did he do wrong?
I have a story on that in a second. Let me get through this. Everyone in the room dies except for BVH. The Basterds re-strategize and join BVH as her 3 escorts. Hans Lando investigates the tavern and finds her shoe and the note she left for Willem's son, Max. Now, I said I have a story with the 3.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a very interesting story about weird Bethanne, 6-year-old, 7-year-old Bethanne. Okay. Because I was told by my grandmother, who was born in 1925, okay? She was pretty old. I have like a long lineage of people having kids later in their life.
100 years ago.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh shit. I should probably tell my mom about that. She's probably mad I haven't brought that up to her yet. Anyway, so 1925, she went through the Great Depression, all that kind of stuff, went through World War II. She said, and I quote, during World War I and World War II that the English could always tell if an American was in their camp by how, or it may have been Germans, regardless, they always could figure out who Americans were by how they ate their food. Because Germans and English, and I think Europe as a whole, eat always with the fork in their left hand, where Americans switch it.
Yeah, I have never. It feels awkward to use my left hand to eat.
Yeah. So I say this because for 10 years, I refused to eat food with my right hand, with the fork in my right hand, in case I needed to be a spy.
Oh, super spy! Wait, thank you for this. Yeah, you're helping me.
I was ready to put me on the line. I'm ready to go.
What sort of mission were you prepping for? What did you think you were going to be doing?
I just figured I needed to get going on it. Okay? Be ready at a moment's notice.
See, but it's stuff like that most people don't pay attention to. But
right.
That was the sort of element that tipped off that German soldier, where just by how Michael Fassbender held up his fingers when he was ordering the drinks, it wasn't even what he said. It was just the fact that he didn't use his thumb. He used his 3 fingers like this, whereas Germans do the 2 fingers and the thumb.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I mean, what do you do if you're only ordering one drink? Just the thumb? That looks like you're trying to hitch a ride.
He should have never did anything. He should have.
You're right. I
kept his goddamn mouth shut. That's what he should have done.
but it was good because, like, I didn't know that, so I'm sitting there thinking, like, you saw the switch in the eye of the Nazi soldier where he was like, "Oh, this guy's not who he says he is." But I'm sitting there wondering what happened to cause that, you know? So they let you go for a couple extra minutes without really explaining it, and it's just another one of the moments in the movie where they create the tension so naturally and so beautifully. But this was another really good scene. I liked it a lot.
And Michael Fassbender also gets an honorary award in the same vein of Christoph Waltz because he knows a shit ton of languages too, and he can act to them well.
He does German so well. I mean, obviously, I know him as Magneto. That's how I was introduced to Michael Fassbender. But every time he has to do the German accent, I mean, shit they chose him for this because he can pretend to be German better than anyone.
Yeah. No, absolutely. A few of my favorite things, and this is once again a nerd moment on my behalf. Diane Kruger, the actress who played BVH, I think she may have been based a little bit off of Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr was a inventor, but an actress who came from Austria. She was married to a World War II artillery, like the one that was used by Hitler and Mussolini for all their weapons. So she escaped the United States and she got into acting. Well, she was already an actress in Austria, but got into acting with MGM. And she also was privy to a lot of the conversations that we speculate on the World War II front for Germans. So she already had a knack for inventing because of her husband, who was an inventor for artillery. So she invented a sonar, for radio transmissions, because how Nazis were getting intercepting our submarines and killing us, right?
Right.
Was because they could bounce onto the radio channel. They could find it. And when they found it, you're locked in. There's nothing you can do about it. She was one of the very first people to invent a system where the radio channel constantly moved so that no one could intercept it, which is one of the reasons why we won the war, was because of that invention. And she did not, I repeat, did not get the credit she deserved when she was alive. She tried to get it presented to the government and things like that, and they just pretty much scoffed at her regardless, and then took her idea. And so, but we use this technology today in our cell phones.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically how we got to Wi-Fi.
Exactly. So what she invented, we can thank her for part of the internet and technology boom that we've experienced because of her invention.
Dude, she was like the original VPN. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
There is a great book. It is fictionized, but it does have a little bit of those elements of truth. It's called The Woman in the Other Room by Marie Benedict that covers her life. And like I said, it's fictionized. So there are some parts, especially in the dialogue, that are not true, but she
Sure.
does hit a lot of those true facts about it.
Wow, we love true
So
facts. That's so
we do love
cool.
true facts. Isn't that
Wow, so
neat?
you think that BVH was based on her? You think that
Yeah, I do, because
Hammersmark
there's element of a
was
spy situation there.
okay, gotcha.
And
I
he's
like
really
that. Yeah, I mean,
too.
I mean, she's definitely well regarded in Hollywood. Tarantino's even referenced her in another one of his movies. I think Margot Robbie gets mistaken for her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah,
She is a name that I mean, it can only help your cause if you are trying to emulate her through one of your characters in a movie. I don't think that's
oh,
ever
I
going to
agree.
be a bad thing. That's so cool. I mean, dude, this movie's written so well. Can we just
Mhm.
talk about how thoughtfully the characters are written? I mean, even Michael Fassbender too.
Yeah.
He the fact that he was a film journalist before being in the military in this movie
Mhm.
is it mirrors his actual childhood and how he grew up because his whole household was they were super into film history and so like on
Right.
top of the whole German uh ability where he can present himself as German really well, the whole film journalist thing, a lot of that's probably natural for him too, because of his natural passion for it. So everything that was written into this story, nothing really feels like it was done just for the sake of moving the story along. It really feels like
Right.
you can take the time to invest in all of it.
We call that not a detail wasted.
Not a
Every
detail
single
wasted.
thing has a purpose in why
Mm,
it's said, how it's said, and that's why I love Tarantino, because he thinks about every single element. Nothing goes by without him ruminating it in his head, and I really appreciate that. One of the last quick things to point out
mhm.
is when they are playing the card game in that scene in the tavern, Beethoven is one of the names on there, and I think
Ooh,
that's a nice little Easter egg with the song, so I like
that's
that too.
cool. I like that. He shows up in multiple places. Yeah, speaking of that scene, the King Kong joke in that scene was insane. It hit me
Yeah,
out of nowhere.
that
Uh,
was dude,
making an allegory to slavery in America. I was not prepared for humor on that level, but
I mean, that's
it
the
hit. It was
Tarantino
good.
experience,
It
man.
was good.
He's the
But
only
I was
person in Hollywood who's gotten away with it.
it was racy for
What
sure. But
Yeah,
I I really loved every part about this scene. It really brings out all the best in Tarantino's writing ability.
yeah,
Because I mean, a lot of these characters you only get to spend this one scene with them, but you still end up caring about them and learning so much that everything feels very genuine and it's very easy to immerse yourself in the story.
yeah. Uh, very much so. Okay, chapter 5, the last chapter, Revenge of the Giant Face. It comes time for the film premiere. BVH is stopped by Hans Lando, who's running security, and when they go into a separate room to talk, she realizes he found her missing shoe. Once he asks very nicely, very kindly, to put on the shoe, and there's a Cinderella moment where it fits, he then chokes her to death. Um,
That was
so
hard to watch.
yeah, stranger beware, stranger danger. Hans captures Aldo Rain and BJ Novak's character, but negotiates safe passage with them out of the war since he knows it's ending. Like you pointed out with the scene with Shoshana in the restaurant very astutely, this man knows things 10 steps ahead.
Yes.
That is why he has gotten so far the way
He's a
he has.
strategist. He's
He
a
really is.
futurist.
He really is. Inside the theater, the doors are locked, and Shoshana cuts parts of the Nation's Pride film with her own message to burn the theater to the ground.
Oh,
Hitler is
so good.
killed by the Bastards with a bunch of guns.
Mowed
Once
down. I mean, they
mowed
took
down.
all the fury out on him.
Yeah. Once they are, Aldo Rain and BJ Novak are released at a rendezvous spot, guess what they do? Swastika time, baby.
No,
Carving it in.
no, 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 it's not
Carving
swastika.
it in. Carve it in. Like, let's go. Time for the
Oh my
world to
gosh.
know what you did.
It was so good because whenever you're watching a movie and the villain is screaming in agony and you're sitting there cheering, you know you're watching a well-written movie because the blood-curdling scream that uh Christoph Waltz lets out at the end of the movie when they're doing that. I mean, oh my god, just hearing that by itself without any context, is very unnerving. But
It's a perfect way to end a film.
But it's the perfect way to end this film because you've grown to despise him so greatly by the time we get to this point that it feels like justice is being served in this
Yeah.
scene.
Is there any closing thoughts on the chapter before I get into the last call? I mean, you kind of wrapped it up there. I mean, Nazis getting their comeuppance. I'm
Uh-huh.
all for it.
Yeah, this whole last chapter was all about the plan, even though it got kind of derailed a little bit. They still the end goal was to defeat Hitler and the Nazis and to claim victory, and they did get to that point.
Yeah.
When they were burning the theater down, the element of how the actual film itself was flammable, and they used that as the catalyst for the big fire, I thought was really cool. The song, they used a David Bowie track, Cat People, for this.
Right.
That line, "I've been putting out the fire with gasoline." I'm convinced that's why they chose this track, because that's exactly what they were doing. They're fighting fire with fire. They're
Yeah.
burning shit down. And everything in this closing segment is so poetic. As I bang my drink against the mic. Sorry, I'm very passionate about this.
You're good.
It feels like poetic justice. This movie builds up so much tension and so much angst and really leaves you in a spot of like, are they going to get justice, or is this all going to fall apart? And
Right.
is it going to play out the way that we know it? And it definitely leans heavy into the justice side of things, and I'm a big fan of that.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And so that's a good segue to our last call, which I'm calling this movies like these are important. And specifically, basically, this movie's on my list. One, because I love Tarantino.
Uh-huh.
I think this film has such good writing, such
Yeah.
good acting, but ultimately, I love a revisionist history on World War II or any big event of what could have been. I think that's really interesting to me
Yeah.
because inside, I really am a 50-year-old man obsessed with World War II. I think what it comes down to. And if you haven't heard from my earlier story with my grandmother, like this shit was on my mind at a young age. Okay. I
Yeah.
don't know why.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. Okay. We don't have anything to talk about in New York except for the Great Depression and World War II. That's what it's like. Maybe because I grew up with such an older grandmother, and
that's what New York is.
That's what New York is. But anyway, so I know the topic of World War II has become pretty overdone in Hollywood, but this is something that I don't think we think about a lot is we are interpreting the events after the fact, right? We get to have these revisionist history because history has already happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there is an interesting thing that we got to talk about, and that is the art that gets created in hard times during the moments. And I do want to highlight some times during movie history when World War II was happening and the media that was coming out during that time.
Ooh, okay.
For
Yeah.
example, Casablanca is probably the most famous one.
Casablanca, yeah.
Yes, an American who owns a bar in Morocco has to decide between the love of his life and a husband who's resisting the German army. And he chooses to help them escape. Walt Disney did a bunch of cartoons with Donald Duck, basically, fucking shit up for Hitler. It was pretty
Yeah,
great.
Donald Duck killing Nazis.
Could you imagine Donald Duck doing the Aldo Rain
just getting those
monologue?
Nazi scalps?
Yeah. I want my Nazi scalps. I cannot do Donald Duck.
Imagine instead of
life of
hearing
me.
the bear Jew just clanging the bat against the stone, you hear just in the distance. You don't see anything. You just hear it in the woods. That would be terrifying.
And he comes out with a fucking golf club instead, they grabbed from Goofy, and his 3 little nephews are with him. They're like, watch me beat up a Nazi nephews.
Oh my god,
dude. Anyway,
the goofiest bastards.
Another one that came out during that time is German Year Zero, which is a documentary. It's on Max. I've watched a little bit of it from time to time.
Okay.
And it is the later one. It's 1948, but it's basically documentary footage of when it happened.
Oh, is it made by Germans?
No. It's made, I think it's made by the British.
Oh,
if I remember correctly, just showing
the Allies making a documentary of
what Germans is basically pointing like, oh, you see how bad the Germans are kind of thing. But it's a historical piece of basically showing what Germany was like through films, so we don't have to speculate.
Okay. I'll have to check that one. You said it's on Max?
Yeah, it's on Max.
Okay. Yeah,
and
that's
then
the stuff you want to watch.
Lastly, the one I want to talk about and the one I'm going to spend the most time on is called The Great Dictator, which was written and starring Charlie Chaplin.
Charlie Chaplin.
The classic. Now, it was a political black comedy movie, excuse me. It written and produced and all that kind of stuff in 1940. Okay? So the war wasn't necessarily in its prime, so to speak.
And we definitely weren't involved yet, right?
No, we were not involved yet. So this was the first film he actually spoke in. This was the first time that people heard his voice, which I think is interesting.
Oh, that's cool.
And basically the premise of it is it's a, like I said, black comedy, so they're spoofing, right, an SNL kind of skit essentially on Hitler, and his name is like Hinkler or something like that. Hinkle. That's what they call
but it's representing Hitler.
Yeah. And basically it's a Freaky Friday situation where Hinkle and a Jewish barber get mistaken for each other, right? And bunch of stuff happens essentially. Long story short, at the very end of the film, not to spoil it for anybody, but Hinkle gets thrown into a concentration camp because they think he's a Jew.
Oh my.
And the Jewish barber, whose name is Schulz, gets to cosplay as Hinkle to try to end the war, and goes to speak in front of thousands of, people at one of their rallies. So before the speech that Chaplin gives, there's like speak of like one of their biggest commanders goes up and says like, they're actually walking up to this gives me goosebumps. They're walking up to a pedestal that says the word liberty. And then the whole speech is about how liberty, justice, and equality is all an illusion.
Oh.
And then in the next speech, they're just like, yeah, Jewish people are no longer citizens. Like, he's just calling it out in 1940s. And here's the tea. No one knew what was happening in the concentration camps. They knew of them. They had no clue that people were dying by the masses. Right. No clue that was happening.
Did this movie reveal any of that?
No.
Oh, so we still didn't know.
Chaplin said if he hadn't known it was that bad, he probably wouldn't have made it, because out of fear of how, like, the heaviness of it, right?
Yeah.
Because he thought at the time he's doing, a satirical film, but it really is something that means something to him, and especially towards the end of this. So, I want to go ahead. And I'm going to pull up the speech, the final speech. I recommend, I'm going to read it. I do recommend everyone watching at least this clip because it gives me goosebumps so much. But let me read it and we'll discuss.
Okay. I'm sorry. So this is a monologue from the movie.
Yes, that Charlie Chaplin gives because he played both characters, right? Hinkle and Schulz. This is the character Schulz, who's Jewish and is essentially impersonating him to try to end the war.
I see.
Right? Try to get people to back down.
Got it.
So this is what he says. I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help each other, help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there is room for everyone. And the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical. Our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent and all will be lost. The airplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for the universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us, but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives. tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, and treat you like cattle, use you as a cannon fodder. Don't give yourself to these unnatural men, machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men. You have love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate. On the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery. Fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke, it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man or group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then, in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and an old age at security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fill that promise, they never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate, with intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us unite.
Wow. That is
1940.
That's powerful stuff. Holy cow.
1940. And
that's good.
I guess where I want to end with this is I'm not going to get too into the politics of it, right? But I think as artists and writers and me and you in the creative space, I think there is something important to when you're witnessing historical events and calling them in advance. Like he said, he wouldn't have written this movie. He wouldn't have written that monologue if he had known how bad it was, but thank God he did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that speech, how can you apply that to today? It's pretty damn easy. I can easily take everything he's saying and apply it to today so incredibly well.
I mean, there's hardly anything that you need to take out to just apply that to what modern society looks like right now.
That is the importance of, and I'm going to get a little kind of not woo-woo, but a little sentimental about it.
We like the woo-woo.
I love a woo-woo, man.
I'll order a bear Jew brew. We'll get real woo-woo.
Yeah, let's get the woo-woo going, man. But there's something about the creative space and you and artists are so important during times of darkness that I don't think we quite understand how important it is. Like, yes, the Anne Franks of the world, right? Journaling and chronicling everything. Those have given us context. But movies like these, right? Where they're calling out what's happening in their day, they really serve, along with the Anne Franks, but it serves as a guidebook to future events.
Yeah.
And if these artists didn't speak during those times, we wouldn't be able to make the films that we make today, looking back at those times and revisiting it. Those wouldn't exist because we're playing off each other. We're continuing the story of what they were seeing and we're revisiting it. But we can never bring the power of what they bring for what they experienced. So, not to end it on an interesting note, but I feel like it needs to be said because that is what this movie stirs in me. It stirs in me like looking at Quentin Tarantino and Hans Lando being the most friendliest villain you've ever seen. And he's telling a story that echoes what actually happened in the past. And then we look at the past artists and we see what they're saying and it speaks to us in the future. And it's this beautiful cycle of creatives with history hearing each other out and speaking to the next generation. I don't know.
Like that.
I think it's poetic. That's how I'm ending
really
this.
Good. Yeah, no, that's great. I like the. Oof, I just need to take a second to soak that in. I'm sorry.
It's heavy. I understand.
Speaking to the next generations is really powerful because people will come to this movie and have questions about the actual history of it. Because as much as I knew about World War II and then I watched this movie, it might be that a lot of people who discover this film go through it in the opposite way, where this inspires them to look into the history behind it and really analyze and study what actually happened. Because you're right. I mean, looking back on what's already happened is so important. And I think people sometimes forget how much we can learn just from our own history, and how much we can change about ourselves and and course correct just looking back on someone else's actions and how it played out,
Right.
It is kind of like a guidebook in a sense, like you said. So yeah, I think that's the perfect way to end it, because coming to this movie, obviously it ends so differently than what actually happened in real life,
Right.
but it's also just really enjoyable,
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, I love it.
I
Like,
mean,
it's
we just
so
get to
written
watch Hitler
well.
get mowed down by a machine
And I'm
gun.
sure when Quentin Tarantino was making it, right, the first goal for him is to make a really engaging story, but he
Mhm.
does his research. I love a writer who does their research
Yeah.
and can honor the past and tell a just like an homage, right? Like a
Yeah.
shadow of what could have been, like a
Yeah.
reflection in the water.
I wish he
It's
would do
distorted,
more of
but it's
this.
there.
I like it. I like it. What other historical event would you like to see Tarantino turn inside out? Because like I'm picturing the American Revolution when I think of
Yeah, that would be
like
good.
he would be good for that. I mean,
Dude,
imagine.
Samuel L. Jackson in that, dude?
Oh, could
Come
you?
on.
I'm
Come
picturing
on.
like a slow mo shot of Paul Revere, like running or not running, but riding on his horse. Just Reservoir Dog style, and you hear like a
Yeah.
Johnny Cash song playing as he's going by. Like
Dude,
that.
yes.
Tarantino can do this, and but it's so cool because, like you said, that it's all revisionist. It's taking something that happened and twisting it into an enjoyable, engaging story where you're not going to go through it knowing what's about to happen the whole time. In fact,
Yeah.
in this movie, it was quite the opposite. It was very unpredictable. But using the source material of something so significant to human history is bold, and it allowed him to be really creative, though, because everything we were viewing was pretty familiar in a sense where we do have a basic knowledge of the history, but
Yeah.
using those elements and twisting them to his liking, I think was really enjoyable. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
what if there are any other movies that have changed how you view history? Please leave a comment somewhere on this, wherever you're listening, and let us know, because if there's anything you've seen that's even half as impactful as this movie was to us, I would love to see it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that wraps up season 1. We did it.
We did it. Yeah,
It's done.
six movies that we love. We've talked
6
about them
movies,
for 6-ish
6
hours.
seasons and a movie, or 6 movies and a movie.
Bear Jew Brew.
Bear Jew
But
Brew.
I need another Bear Jew Brew after that. I mean, I obviously when we started talking about this idea, I didn't expect to ever get into anything as deep as the history of World War II, but it is really cool the places that these movies can take us in terms of the conversations we have.
I agree.
What else could really get us to this point? Because I I know I've talked about textbooks on this show before, and although I wasn't very specific in which textbooks I was talking about, a lot of this history you only get from education. There's not a lot of curiosity about what we've done in our history as humans. So I also think that guys like Quentin Tarantino do such a good service to humanity by
Yes.
inspiring and creating curiosity around stuff like this.
Say it again. Education, man. Say it
He
again.
educates with entertainment. You got to
That's
be
right.
real skilled to do that.
Listen,
You can
you can
entertain with
both learn
education, but if
about
you
World War
educate,
II and
yes.
imagine what it's like to put a swastika in a Nazi's head. I mean, that's giving both worlds right there. Both
That
worlds.
is something the federally funded school system will not show you. But thank you, Quentin.
Thank you, Quentin. Okay. I'm gonna let you do
Man,
the outro because, as you know,
sure.
I always mess it up.
Well, I just have to I just have to end it with saying thank you. Obviously we've like we said, we've done 6 of these now where we just sit down, pick a favorite movie of ours, and have as much fun with it as we can while we're drinking. And it's not like, we're monetizing this or really benefiting from it at all, other than just nurturing our creativity. But for anyone who's along with us for this ride, thanks for joining us. And hopefully, if we ever have like an actual lounge bar someday, hopefully you'll stop by and have a drink with us. But
Yeah. That's a good
um
note.
yeah, I mean, next season, more to come on that. Again, by the time you're listening to this, check our socials, because we'll probably have some sort of update for you posted there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can find us at Sipping on Cinema on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you're going to look. You can find me at Reely JRB, REELY JRB. Bethanne, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at Bethanne Tarpley on Twitter and Instagram. Yeah, I'm there hanging out sometimes, or I'm reading a book.
We're going to keep hanging out. If you have any suggestions on what movie you would like to hear us talk about on this show, we're definitely open to suggestions. Like I said, we're workshopping a lot of stuff right now. So follow us, engage with us, leave us a 5-star review if you're feeling generous. But until then, keep gathering those scalps.
Keep getting scalps.
And keep sipping.
Keep sipping.